What if the moments that confuse you the most, the pauses, the patterns, the quiet sense that something is unfolding behind the scenes of your life were not accidents at all, but precise signals from a hidden layer of reality responding to your awareness? Something happened inside Google's quantum lab that shouldn't feel possible. A chip no bigger than the palm of your hand started producing results that classical reality couldn't keep up with. Not because physics broke, but because our intuition did. For generations, we were taught that reality is solid, predictable, and ultimately explainable with enough data, enough equations, enough time. And then, almost without warning, that certainty began to crack. Because if a machine can enter a regime we can't even fully simulate, there's a question humanity has quietly avoided for centuries. What if reality was never meant to be predictable? Most people in America grow up believing the world is external and fixed. You work hard, plan ahead, follow the rules, and expect cause to lead cleanly to effect. Time moves forward, effort equals reward, and life is something you navigate from the outside. And yet, deep down, you've probably felt something else at work, a subtle pull, a quiet knowing. Moments when life feels strangely responsive, as if it's listening to your inner state. This isn't wishful thinking. This is where quantum consciousness begins to whisper. Over the last few decades, science crossed a line that made even the most disciplined thinkers uncomfortable. Experiments in quantum physics revealed that at the deepest level, particles don't behave like objects at all. They exist as probabilities, waves of potential, until something observes them. The instant awareness enters the equation. The quantum field responds. This isn't metaphor. It's measurable. And once you truly absorb that observation alters outcome, a dangerous realization follows. Consciousness is not passive. It participates. This is usually where explanations stop, because certainty dissolves here. If reality is shaped by observation, then what you call the external world isn't fully external. It's entangled with perception, expectation, and the subconscious mind, your emotional vibration, your dominant frequency, the patterns running quietly beneath your awareness, may be influencing outcomes long before logic catches up. That pressure you've felt lately, the sense that something in you is being nudged awake, may not be psychological at all. It may be the early phase of a spiritual awakening, triggered by resonance with the field itself. You were never taught to see life this way. Culture trained you to think linearly, to believe cause and effect only move forward. And that consciousness is merely a byproduct of the brain. But quantum mechanics disrupted that story. Consciousness appears woven into reality, not produced by it. And when awareness shifts, reality reorganizes. That's why moments of clarity often coincide with sudden changes, synchronicities, or the collapse of old patterns that no longer match your frequency. If you've ever felt out of place, unusually sensitive to energy, emotions, or environments, there's a reason. When your internal frequency stops aligning with unconscious patterns, the system pushes back. That resistance is often mislabeled as anxiety or confusion. In truth, it's feedback. The quantum field doesn't punish. It mirrors. And the mirror sharpens as consciousness expands. Here's what almost no one tells you. Your subconscious mind isn't just a storage unit for memories and habits. It functions like an interface between consciousness and the field. Most creation doesn't happen through deliberate thought. It happens through coherence, through belief structures, emotional alignment, and identity. When those signals change, reality responds. Doors open that never opened before. Others quietly disappear. This is why awakening often feels destabilizing before it feels empowering. Old explanations collapse faster than new ones form. The mind searches for certainty, but the quantum nature of existence offers none. Instead, it offers participation. You are not here to control reality. You are here to synchronize with it. And this brings us to the part nobody talks about, the place where quantum science, hidden reality, and lived human experience intersect in a way that changes how you see yourself. Because once you sense that reality responds to awareness, vibration, and perception, a deeper question begins to form. If the field is always listening, if consciousness is always involved, then what has your inner state been teaching reality to reflect back to you all this time? Before we go deeper, Let's pause and make this a conscious exchange, not just something you listen to while scrolling. If this perspective resonates with you, engaging here matters. A comment, a like, or a subscription isn't about validation or numbers. It's how this channel continues to grow, so this kind of conversation can reach people who are quietly questioning reality and don't yet have the language for what they're feeling. This is how a community forms around awareness, clarity, and expansion of consciousness. Your interaction signals that this content has value, that it deserves to keep circulating, and that these questions about quantum consciousness, the quantum field, vibration, and perception are worth exploring with depth and responsibility. Growth here means access. More minds, more dialogue, more people realizing they're not alone in these experiences. Before we go deeper, comment, "I'm still here," if you want the full story, because the last part connects this chip to something you've probably felt in your own life. In the next section, we'll move from ideas into something far more personal, where quantum technology and human awareness begin to overlap in a way that changes how you see what's been happening inside you all along. In the next section, everything tightens. Here's the unsettling part most people were never prepared to hear. For decades, the unspoken belief of modern science was that with enough power, a classical computer could approximate almost anything. Reality was assumed to be complex, but ultimately traceable, predictable in principle. That assumption quietly collapsed the moment quantum processors entered regimes that classical simulation could no longer follow. Quantum processors don't approximate reality. They behave like it. They evolve through superposition, interference, probability. When Google Quantum AI introduced Willow, their next-generation quantum chip, it wasn't presented as a philosophical event. It was framed as progress toward a large-scale, error-corrected quantum computer. That phrase sounds technical, almost dull, until you understand what it implies. A quantum processor capable of maintaining coherence long enough to enter states the classical world cannot track, compress, or intuit. Qubits interacting beyond our mental reach. Complexity exploding faster than models can adapt. This is why people say reality was broken. Not because physical laws changed, but because our ability to follow them collapsed. The chip runs. The equations still hold, yet classical simulation fails to keep up. We're left observing outputs we can verify without fully visualizing what's happening inside. A black box reality unfolding in real time. And that's where the fear begins. Because the moment you accept that reality can evolve in ways your mind can't simulate, a deeper parallel emerges. In quantum consciousness, awakening feels the same. As perception expands, old mental frameworks lose authority. The subconscious mind, trained for linear cause and effect, struggles to interpret experience. You begin sensing a hidden reality beneath appearances. A quantum field responding to vibration, frequency, and coherence rather than control. This channel exists to explore that edge responsibly. If this perspective resonates, engage consciously. A comment strengthens the exchange. A like helps this signal reach others quietly questioning reality. Subscribing supports a growing community focused on expansion of consciousness and clarity. Because as we move forward, the boundary between quantum computing and human perception grows thinner, and what this reveals about the nature of reality is only beginning to surface. And yet, there's a reason quantum computers haven't taken over the world. It was never a lack of power. It was noise. The quantum world is fragile. One uncontrolled interaction with the environment, one microscopic fluctuation, and coherence collapses. Information decays. The computation dissolves back into randomness. For years, this fragility was treated as the final wall, proof that quantum computing would remain impressive but impractical. And in a strange way, this mirrors what happens in human perception. When the mind is noisy, when the subconscious mind is fragmented, awareness can't stabilize long enough to perceive the deeper structure of reality. This is why quantum error correction became the true holy grail. Not speed, not scale, stability. And this is where Google's work matters far more than dramatic headlines. In peer-reviewed research published in Nature, Google and collaborators demonstrated that by scaling a surface code logical qubit quantum errors can be suppressed rather than amplified. In simple terms, adding structured relationships between qubits protected information instead of destroying it. Quantum coherence lasted longer. Order emerged from fragility. This moment is easy to underestimate, but it marks a fundamental shift. In fault-tolerant quantum computing, crossing what researchers call beyond break-even means that as the system grows, errors decrease instead of spiraling out of control. Reliability becomes possible, and the parallel with quantum consciousness is impossible to ignore. Expansion does not come from intensity. It comes from coherence. When your inner frequency is scattered, energy leaks. When perception is noisy, reality feels chaotic. But when alignment forms, awareness stabilizes, and the field responds with precision. Once a quantum system becomes reliable, the question changes. It's no longer, can it run? It becomes, what happens when it runs problems reality itself is made of? Materials, chemistry, complex quantum dynamics, information woven into the field, the same hidden reality your perception brushes against during moments of spiritual awakening and expansion of consciousness. If this perspective resonates, engage consciously. A comment strengthens the exchange. A like helps this signal reach others sensing the same shift. Subscribing supports a community focused on clarity, not noise. And answer this honestly in the comments. Do you believe reality is fully predictable or fundamentally unknowable? I read every response because what comes next depends on how open your perception is willing to become. And this is where the story crosses into territory that feels almost unreal, because now we're no longer talking about theoretical promise or distant futures. Reports this year described Google running a new quantum algorithm on Willow that wasn't framed as a demonstration, but as a landmark step toward practical quantum computing, practical value. For that specific task, performance reached orders of magnitude beyond classical methods. What truly mattered wasn't raw speed, but verifiable results, outputs that could be checked, validated, trusted, not believed, tested. That single detail changes everything. The moment a quantum system becomes both powerful and verifiable, it stops being a laboratory curiosity. It becomes an instrument, a new way of exploring the quantum field itself. Quantum simulation moves into materials science, drug discovery, molecular behavior, quantum information, domains where classical intuition collapses, where reality is too complex to compress into simple equations or comforting narratives. And suddenly, we're no longer guessing. We're observing layers of hidden reality that were always there, but inaccessible to perception. This is where the deeper fear quietly unlocks. Not fear of what the machine can compute, but fear of what it reveals. That reality may contain structures the classical mind cannot simplify. That perception has limits. That the universe operates through frequency, coherence, and interaction rather than linear control. In quantum consciousness, this mirrors the moment of spiritual awakening when old explanations dissolve faster than new ones form, and awareness expands beyond what the subconscious mind was trained to handle. As perception sharpens, resistance appears. The mind wants certainty, but the signal is already clearer. Energy follows coherence. Reality responds not to force, but to alignment. And just like the quantum system, once awareness stabilizes, experience becomes less predictable, yet more precise. If this perspective resonates, engage consciously. A thoughtful comment strengthens the exchange. A like helps this signal reach others sensing the same expansion of consciousness. Subscribing supports a space focused on clarity, not noise. Because what comes next connects this technological threshold to something deeply personal, and the implications are far closer to your own life than they may seem right now. And this is where everything quietly turns inward. So did Google's quantum chip actually break reality? Not in the way dramatic headlines suggest. It didn't break physics. What it broke was the illusion that the universe must always be understandable in the way we prefer. For a long time, comfort came from believing reality could be reduced, predicted, and controlled if we just had enough information. Quantum systems remove that comfort without replacing it with chaos. They reveal something more unsettling and more precise. Because once you accept that reality can generate states your classical mind cannot fully track, compress, or intuit, you are forced into a deeper question disguised as science. What if consciousness is not a passenger observing reality from the outside, but part of the system that experiences reality at all? What if awareness is not secondary, but participatory? This is where quantum consciousness stops being an abstract concept and starts becoming personal. That's why this video isn't really about a chip. It's about recognition. You have felt moments when life didn't behave like a straight line. Moments when intuition arrived before explanation. When synchronicities unfolded with timing, it felt almost impossible. When your subconscious mind seemed to know something before your conscious mind could justify it. Those experiences were not errors. They were brief alignments with a hidden reality operating beneath linear perception. The chip becomes a mirror. It shows how easily the universe escapes simple prediction and how reality organizes itself through interaction, coherence, and probability rather than certainty. When that mirror turns inward, pressure begins to loosen. The need to have everything figured out softens. Expansion of consciousness doesn't hand you answers. It changes how you experience energy, how you sense vibration, how you relate to frequency and meaning inside your own awareness. This is the quiet beginning of spiritual awakening for many people. Not dramatic, not performative, but deeply internal. A recalibration of perception. As awareness stabilizes, the observer effect no longer feels like a laboratory result. It feels like lived experience. You notice that reality responds differently when your inner state becomes coherent. That synchronicities feel less random and more like feedback. That intuition sharpens when mental noise fades. The quantum field does not change. Your relationship to it does. And this realization opens the next doorway. Because if reality is not strictly classical, if consciousness participates, if perception alters experience, then time itself may not be what we were taught to believe. That idea unsettles scientists not because it is mystical, but because it reframes memory, anticipation, regret, and identity. If time is not absolute, then neither is the story you tell yourself about where you are in life or where you think you should be. Stay with that sensation. Let it register without trying to resolve it too quickly. This is not about reaching a conclusion. It's about standing at the edge of one. Before we move further, mark your presence consciously in the comments. Write, "I awaken," "I see beyond," or "I am expanding," whichever reflects where you are right now. Not as a declaration, but as participation. Because what comes next moves directly into why time itself may be an illusion, and why once you truly see that, your perception of your own life timeline can never return to what it was before. Stay with this awareness as you move forward. If this exploration of quantum consciousness, the quantum field, vibration, and spiritual awakening resonated with you, support its reach in a grounded way. Liking this video helps the algorithm recognize that depth and clarity matter. Subscribing keeps this channel alive and focused, allowing more people to encounter these ideas and experience real expansion of consciousness. This is how a conscious community grows through intentional presence and shared curiosity. One last thing before you step into the next doorway. Share this with the one person who's been feeling like reality is slightly off lately. They'll know why. And when you're ready, leave a comment at the end with a simple phrase that reflects where you are now. I awaken, I continue, or I see beyond. If you feel called, tell me the strangest synchronicity you've ever experienced. I'm building the next episode around your stories. Join me in the next video, where we go even deeper into why time itself may be an illusion, and why seeing that clearly changes how you experience your past, your future, and the unfolding of your life.